Okay, so Nana Lohrengel is the Secretary General of the...
Berto Elisabetta Mauri, which is a school for booksellers.
Terrific. So I've never heard of anything like this in the English-speaking world, so that's why I'm here, in hopes of you telling me what you teach people.
Well, in fact, we teach them the basics.
Okay, so what are the basics?
Well, how to manage a bookstore. Topics to the selection of books or the layout, everything you need to know how to run a bookshop successfully, I would say.
Okay, and so what's the secret to success then? What is it that they learn when they come here and then they leave? What have they learned that they didn't know before?
I'm very much concentrated to teach economic topics in order that you know how your business runs or works and what kind of result do you have. It's very important that the bookseller is aware of his business.
Yeah, that's general. I want specifics if you can give them to me.
You need to know about your costs, how much is your wages you pay, how much is your rent corresponding to your business.
But these are things that are typical of any business, not book business. What's specific to the book business that's different?
Well, it is different because you have many things to do in a day, you know. You need to take care of your customers. You may need to try to make them comfortable, that they want to come to your bookshop.
How do you do that?
You create a nice bookshop, you know. There can be different bookshops, you know, maybe nice and tidy. Some are more chaotic but also welcoming. So there is no rule really. Everybody needs to make his own bookshop. Also regarding communication, how to deal with your social networks, what are the trends. You teach them and you do a group work, and so they really get somehow trained or they think about what they do right or where are their capacities. Very practical stuff really. But our school is a little bit different because the booksellers are coming to our school, they already work as booksellers. There is no real school from the beginning, whereas in fact if you become a bookseller in Germany, you need to go and get trained in a school at least for 2 years.
And that before they'll even let you set up they meaning the government will let you set up a bookstore? There's a regulation?
In Germany it's very important to require, you know, professional booksellers for your bookstores. So it is, you would call it probably apprenticeship. So you learn to become a bookseller, do that at least for 2 years. So you will either have like 16 hours at school in a week, and the rest of the week you work in a bookshop. So you will get trained really in every single type of subject.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
So you will have a complete training.
Right.
Whereas we here in Italy do a sort of learning and teaching for booksellers, but it is much more on a spot. Because usually our courses, they are like 8 hours a day, so they're daily courses on different subjects. And then once a year we have a specialization seminar in Venice, which is 2.5 days, and then there's a big congress conclusion day. It is actually in Italy the most important event of the publishing industry. So we have around 500 people in Venice for the conference. Well, and next week, for example, we will do our 5th course in South Italy, this year in Rome, In autumn, we went to Bari, and before that, we went to Palermo. So we will have 30 independent booksellers coming from South Italy. And in these 2 days, we will especially talk about how to select books and how to select them in a also good business way.
That's what I want to know. How would you do that? What would you teach them?
Figures, maybe, so that they really get awareness of the market where they operate in.
I see, okay.
It depends really on your bookshop, because in a way your bookshop is also extremely, was a personal selection.
Right, exactly. It's your personality.
Especially in bookshops in Italy, if you think about that, we have about 900 bookshops which are belonging to chains and franchising.
Yeah.
And then you have another 1,500 bookshops which are independent and more or less below 100 square meters or between 100 and 300 square meters.
So you really have to make the right choice.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you don't have much space.
If you have an interesting selection, if your client comes in and is looking, at your tail in a square meter, you can, there's some sort of language, a good selection made, probably he will go out with 5 books, probably.
Yeah.
So this is really what you need to. Yeah, you need to be, someone very curious, updated. You need to, you run your business with a lot of passion and a lot of work, I think.
Yeah, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, what do you teach? Well, I've already repeated myself, but if I was to take the program, the course, what would I learn? Like, what would you tell me specifically about how to set that table up in a way that's going to sell the most books? How am I going to do that?
Well, I think if you get aware of certain numbers and figures, as you are talking to, other professionals, I think the most, if you're talking about selections, they get aware of what they can improve and what they might be already do the right way, but be more confident also about it. And to be aware, for example, when you come back after a day going to school, if you come back to your bookshops and you just think, if I went in here and it wouldn't be my bookshop, am I able to find something I'm looking for, or very basic things. Or we just had a very nice day doing on social network and communication, and some people, it's something new what the bookseller needs to do as well. And there was a bookseller coming, and he was just telling us how he is doing it.
Right.
And it was very interesting, because this bookseller, he decided, okay, I'm ready now. I'm doing Instagram, especially Instagram and Facebook, because here in Italy still Facebook is very strong for book selling.
Okay.
And Instagram, of course, as well. And he decided to take someone on, because he said, I'm not capable of doing it.
Yeah.
But probably if I'm doing it the right way, it will also turn into to turnover. And I think that was really interesting, because he is doing it himself. He gets filmed.
Oh, yes, okay.
By the lady who is in charge of the communication for Instagram and Facebook. That's what they chose to do.
Yeah.
And he will make a very small video where he is doing his proposals. Maybe he will put 2 or 3 books inside.
Yeah.
And he will do it in a very quick way. So sometimes you need to watch it twice to understand, to get all the information out. But it is made in a very personal, of course, clever way that you really want to get these books. And what is interesting, we are talking about a small independent bookshop in Milan, it really works.
Well, it's like he's hand selling you the book.
Exactly.
So that you can see the pitch.
It's also a topic of the course, for example, is not every bookseller is able to do it like this.
Right. They're not as outgoing, you mean? Or
for example, to go in front of the camera because they're not comfortable.
Yeah.
So in the same way we said, well, you can also do, if you like, interesting things without being seen.
Yeah.
For example. And
like what?
If you put a nice selection, or I think the most important thing is, if you are independent booksellers, is that you don't put like a best-selling book in your communication, because they get sold anyway.
That's right.
So what is very, I think it's important to choose something new for your customer, or something.
Yeah, something unusual. Yeah.
Curious,
Yeah.
Then you buy. For example, this small bookshop has 3 windows, and every time I walk past, I have a look, and often I will walk in.
Because of the interesting.
Something.
Okay.
So of course you need to change your window often, and think about something which makes sense. So
Yeah.
I think that is very important, that you somehow understand also your capabilities and possibilities. And sometimes even I think it is also important that the bookseller just is outside his bookshop for a day and stay in a class with different booksellers.
Yeah.
Which is very important. For example, in our school, it's very important to have a coffee break and a lunch break, because then you have also time to speak to each other.
Yeah.
So it's very, very easy and basic things. Well, if I think it's a very unique. Of course, it's very unique and very beautiful school, which we have since 40 years.
Right here, where this is it, right?
Well, this is our offices, but the school is not in this office.
Okay.
We have our courses in Milano at the Triennale. It's a museum very close to us, which is very nice.
Okay.
Looking into the park. And for example, now in Rome, we will be hosted in a very nice publishing house.
With
30 independent booksellers coming from South Italy.
But what's the publishing house?
The publishing house is Casa Editrice La Terza. It's a publishing house which we have a very good relation, and they are hosting with pleasure our
the booksellers,
booksellers,
which is helpful for them too, obviously, because the bookseller become familiar with their.
There will be also an invitation to dinner by the publisher. Also, when we go to Venice, the seminar takes place every year at the Giorgio Cini Foundation. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's opposite San Marco Square on Isola di San Giorgio Maggiore. It's this very nice island which you can see on any painting.
Okay. Okay. So it sounds to me, well, first of all, personality seems to be key here. It's almost that the booksellers need to emphasize and communicate their tastes, their, obviously their thoughts about which books are the most interesting books to read. Is that what you're trying to do? Is hone that?
I think it's very important to be always curious if you are a bookseller.
Right.
About things, but on one hand they need to learn very basic rules on how to run a business regarding the right figures.
So they have to be able to see trends, or because you don't want them to go out of business. The idea is to keep them in business.
Exactly. And it is very important that you have a strong independent booksellers as strong book chains or a strong franchise.
Yeah.
So in the end, the market is a composition of all these little or bigger realities.
So you use you show them what kind of figures they should be looking for to tell if they're getting, if things are getting better or worse. I mean,
well, you need to you have your fixed costs. How much are your flexible costs, and how much does it cost to buy books, and how much does it cost to return books, especially return right is, in Italy you have a return right.
Yeah.
But, it's very costly to return books.
Yeah, just labor involved. Yeah. So it pays to make a good choice to start with instead of ordering, obviously, stuff that doesn't sell.
Exactly.
So how do you teach that, though?
You will see how much, for example, how many books you need to sell in a year to have regarding on square meters, on how many people are working in the shop.
And how does that help them succeed then?
Well, I think first of all, it helps every bookseller to be aware in what kind of situation he is.
Okay.
And then accordingly you can, adjust things.
Okay.
I think that's the actually most important, start, because otherwise you might not have such a happy business in the end.
Yeah.
And the margin on books
is
very
tight. Yeah. Again, this is all common sense. I guess I'm just trying to get at. Well, unless of course a lot of these booksellers but they're not maybe practical business minds. Is that what you're trying to get into them more than anything?
I think a good run bookshop today can be a really good and strong business. But you need to be very careful, and you need to understand how to run your business.
Right.
It is also, I think it's my favorite. I'm a German bookseller. Right. And I was very lucky because I became a bookseller in Berlin. So I got trained in the school in Berlin.
Okay.
And I was so lucky to be sent to the school in Frankfurt, like a boarding school.
Not when you were really young, though.
After school. You can either go to university or you can make an apprenticeship to become, either bookseller or electrician. So,
you see, this is what's lacking in the English-speaking world. I was just interviewing someone who's written a book in praise of good bookstores, Jeff Deutsch. One of his goals is to develop this idea of bookselling being a profession. He is in charge of the Seminary Co-op bookstore in Chicago. It's one of the great bookstores in America. But the model of bookselling as a retail business is broken, he thinks. there's not enough money in it to allow people like him to become a professional bookseller because the margins are so tight, and he wants a different kind of model. And it sounds like Germany has more of that, or at least it's not just a retail business, it sounds like.
No, it's in Germany, most of the booksellers are really trained booksellers.
Right.
So it is really a profession.
Yes.
You do also an exam in the end.
You get a certificate.
Yeah. What you have in Germany for all professionals. So you get all trained.
Yeah.
And I think I'm sure it's the right way. What is interesting, for example, I'm not sure if they already started, but I know that my Spanish friends, they are going to build up a school for the industry. And they got very important funding from the Ministry of Culture. Very important figures.
Yes, you see, that's I think the problem in the States is that you wouldn't see necessarily the government funding something like that. But see, what I was trying to do today was come in here and get what you learn out by coming here and get the essence of how to be a good bookseller. But you're not telling me that, though. So are you suggesting that one would have to come in here, take the course, and then get the secrets? Yes, maybe that would be the better thing, is to actually experience the course, hear what you have to say, and then we could do an interview about specifically what you're teaching. Because as I say, it seems to me, sure, you need to know the business. You need to learn how to communicate about books. You need to have training on how to convey your enthusiasm about books.
And you need to know in what kind of market you are operating in which area. For example, yesterday evening I went to see the opening of a new bookshop in Milan.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure that is a very clever bookshop because it's very small. It's about 150 square meters, but it is on a corner of two very important roads in Milan.
What's it called?
Libraccio.
Libraccio. Yeah, I'm going to visit it.
They are specialized in school books as well.
Okay.
So they are average bookstore, but with a selection of school books, because in Italy from the sixth year of school, starting from the sixth year, you need to buy your books. And
directly from the
bookstores.
Okay, but the teachers tell the students what to buy. Is it each school independent, or is it the state?
So every teacher selects his books. So of course there is a selection who do. It's not very easy to operate in school books, and they do it with a great success for new school books and also used school books. This is how they started in the 70s, and they do sell also used books. There, for example, are a very nice independent chain in the north.
What's the name of it again?
Libraccio.
Yeah, I'm going to write that down.
During September, when all school books get sold, it's amazing. Long queues out of the bookshops, and for them it's Christmas.
Okay, well, I just want to sort of wind this down by suggesting that democracy and the betterment of society, these are concepts that are directly tied to the health and well-being of bookstores in a society. Is that one of the messages that you're bringing?
Well, of course, if we, I think we need to take care of the reading society And on the same end, we need to take care of the non-reading society. We should try to get some of the non-reading society. So it's not very easy to get the non-reading society, but
you mean to try to interest them in books, you mean? That's your role, one of your roles?
yeah, of course. I think it is also even more important to concentrate on the reading society so that you don't use them as well.
It is shrinking, isn't it? Or is it?
Well, it is shrinking, and I think, we have this always in mind. It's a big competitor.
And it's easier for tyrants to manipulate the population, I suppose, if fewer people are reading a wide range of things.
Big fortune to learn reading books, then you're really safe in your life. But sometimes you even stop reading books, and then it is even, a bigger fortune to come back to reading and never stop reading for your whole life.
How does it save your life then?
Well, in any situation, you will always find, interesting things to read.
Yeah.
In fact, for example, in Italy, of course, this is a very high number, because there's also probably 2,100 people of self-publishing in it. But today, for example, we will have like 1,250,000 titles available. So every bookseller in Italy could order and select
from over 1 million.
Yeah, titles,
Yeah, so the selection is so important.
Yeah. Human being, it's so lovely to meet a good bookseller in your life.
Someone who's well read. That's always interesting. Yeah. Otherwise, if you're not reading interesting things, you're not going to be an interesting person. Right? And who wants to meet someone who's not interesting? Okay, I still haven't gotten really to the crux of what you might learn, but you're not going to give that away.
Not today.
Not today, but if you are a bookseller, or if you have an interest in the field, then you're telling me would give me the tools to, if not be successful, then to do a better job than I'm currently doing. Is there anything else that you haven't said that will help a bookseller? And I've got a lot of booksellers who listen to the podcast. What can you tell them that will help them?
Readers or your customers. I think that it is lovely to come to your bookshop, and that you would like to come back to this bookshop. I think that is really to be, welcome, or if you like also, there are many particular types of customers. Sometimes they want to be recognized, some of them they prefer not. It's a very individual way of being and treating others, I think.
Yeah, you have to read people very astutely, don't you?
It's better to be a good bookseller instead of doing also other businesses like making coffee. Either you run a bar or you be a bookseller.
Oh, wait a sec. I'm going to a bar bookstore called Verso.
Well, of course, then there are specialized shops which work, but I think if you are an average bookshop, I think it's very hard to do both. Otherwise, you need to have someone who does it for you. You can't be the only one who's doing it all. In our independent bookshops, you need to be very careful what you are selling as non-book products, for example.
Yeah.
Because you need to be careful, you need to have something well selected.
Yeah, you can't have bed sheets. You say you're German. I was, a couple of years ago, I was in Dussmann.
Mm-hmm.
and I was in the English. Every time I get a chance to say this, I've been to thousands of bookstores in the English-speaking world, and that's the best English bookstore I've ever been in my life.
That's amazing.
And it's because of, well, lots of things that I did get someone called John Owen to tell me about what he had done in that store. But it seemed like everywhere I turned, I was just excited by the title and the beautiful way it was illuminated, and I just loved it. And I suppose that's what you're trying to get at here is to help these people impress a customer in the browsing experience that they might have.
I think it doesn't matter if a book is more expensive in a bookshop than online, because if you have a good experience, you are happy to take the book with you straight away.
Well, you want to support the people who gave you that experience, I suppose.
Dealing with, great people. So otherwise you're dealing with your telephone.
That's right.
So, and I think that's a very big difference.
Yeah, dealing with real people is something that seems to be slipping away, and that's a problem again for society.
Exactly. Well, for me, it's one of my first values.
Being able to deal in the flesh with real people. Yeah. I could have done this by Zoom with you, but this is way better.
Yeah, well, of course. To meet someone, it's much better.
I won't drag this on too much, but it's much better because of what?
Well, I'm still so old-fashioned. I don't know where we're going, but I still enjoy it. And I see kids, they enjoy it to meet their friends. So I think probably there's a little bit of future still.
Well, thank you for giving us hope in the future. Nana Lohrengel is the Secretary General of a bookseller school in Milan, Italy, where we are today. Thanks, in person, in the real living world. Thanks again.
Thank you.